Leafs defenseman Mark Giordano will miss at least Thursday's game against the Kraken. It's a hand injury. He suffered it while blocking a shot in Tuesday's win over Florida. Head coach Sheldon Keefe said he's still undergoing tests to determine.
And Klingberg. Now, listen, the Leafs have been calling around because that's what Brad Treliving does. We've reported before, and it remains true, that some of his old Calgary rear guards are of interest to him. Chris Tanev, Nikita Zadorov. But obviously he's looking around the league elsewhere too. Easier said than done. There's something called a salary cap, and one of the reasons you don't see a lot of big trades in the first couple of months of the year is because it's so hard to move money. You know, you saw a trade on Monday with Beauvillier going from Vancouver to Chicago. Guess what? The Hawks are one of the few teams in the league that could take a contract, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the Leafs still want to upgrade the blue line. The Klingberg situation is where it could get interesting. He was supposed to see a specialist this week, and it was going to be determined whether or not he needs surgery. And if he needs surgery, does that mean his season is over? And if his season is over, I don't have to tell you, that means now they have cap money to spend. So we'll see where that goes.
You know, you mentioned Chris Tanev, Nikita Zadorov. You know, these Flames players that have been out there supposedly for a long time now, Pierre, and our mutual good buddy Chris Johnston, your new colleague at The Athletic, just put out his new trade bait board, first trade bait board of the year at The Athletic, and 4 Flames right near the top, including Noah Hannafin, Elias Lindholm, Chris Tanev, and Nikita Zadorov. I guess my question for you, Pierre, is that this Calgary Flames team is not out of the postseason picture by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
Have things changed at all from Craig Conroy's perspective, or are the potential deals too tempting for him to pass up?
You know, Jay, it's never been about I need to trade this guys as much as, you know, I don't think I can sign all these guys, and I don't want them to walk out the door July 1st for nothing like Johnny Gaudreau did a couple of years ago. So I think it's important to note that, because it's not about we don't like these players. They tried to sign them this summer. They tried to sign Lindholm, right? And in fact, in Hannafin's case, and I reported this a few weeks ago on Insider Trading, but they came so close to extending Noah Hannafin. It was an 8-year deal at close to $60 million, around $7.5 million a year that Hannafin had on the table. And it was Hannafin that said, you know what, team's not playing well. You know what, I'm going to back off from this right now. I don't know that any of that's changed now. I feel like once the Flames as an organization said we might need a bit of a roster reset and maybe get some assets for some of these pending UFAs, I don't know if you can put the genie back in the bottle. Stranger things have happened. But I still expect, for example, Hannafin to get dealt at some point. And in his case, the idea from everyone involved is that he gets dealt as a signed player, that there's an extension in place for him wherever he ends up, and so on and so on. So it certainly, I would say, there's less urgency now for the Flames to have to start moving bodies because they are playing good hockey. They're back in it. But I don't know why it would change unless you're extending some of these guys, why it would change between now and March 8th. I mean, even if you make the playoffs, how deep in the playoffs is this Calgary Flames team going to go? You need to get assets back for some of these guys.
That's fair. Vancouver Canucks, what a story. And, you know, it's been a great start to the year. And you mentioned it earlier in this interview. They traded Anthony Beauvillier to the Chicago Blackhawks. and they free up over $4 million in cap space. They are a contender in the West, but they also have some serious contracts looming, especially to their number one center. Is it possible, Pierre, that Patrick Allvin is just hoarding money for a potential massive deal for Pettersson? Or are there other potential deals on the table that this Vancouver Canucks team wants to make?
Well, can two things be true? I mean, I think he wants to add a D, and yes, I think he wants to make sure he has flexibility this summer as well. So can he do both? I ran into Patrick Allvin 2 weeks ago at the GM meetings in Toronto, and I asked him specifically about calling around for D, and he acknowledged that that's priority number one, that he'd like to somehow add a piece on the blue line. And at the time, it was difficult because of the cap issues with the Canucks. Now they've found some cap flexibility. Honestly, really nice move by Vancouver to be able to move Villiers in a context of where it's almost impossible to move money so one-sided in the system right now, especially at this time of year. So I think the Canucks will try to add a piece on the back end between now and March 8th, and frankly, probably as soon as possible if they can find a partner. And now they have more flexibility to do that.
Pierre, you had a great article on Tuesday. You wrote about coaches paying the price for a lack of salary cap flexibility for their teams. And of course, we're talking about Dean Evason in Minnesota, where they were in cap hell and continue to be in cap hell because of buyouts. And then Jay Woodcroft also let go as well. Do you see other teams that might be in a similar spot soon, Pierre? And do you see Evason and maybe even more so Jay Woodcroft finding his way back behind an NHL bench sooner rather than later?
I think they both will at some point, and perhaps within the next year here. I think both are well regarded. And really, the other point in that piece I wrote Monday, or I guess Tuesday in The Athletic, is that both Jay Woodcroft and Dean Evason were fired as well for the weight of expectations and where their teams were in the standings. I mean,
for sure,
those were the two most disappointing teams in the league. The Wild coming off back-to-back 100-point seasons, and of course the Oilers getting knocked out, by the eventual Cup champion 2 years in a row, and very much looking the part of a serious Cup contender. So the point was that's really why these guys got fired, because couldn't make a big trade. The cap just wouldn't allow the Oilers or the Wild to shake up their team with a big trade this early in the year. And at the end of the day, both got fired when I can tell you neither GM wanted to fire them. Like, that was really, if we're going to salvage the season and still make the playoffs, we have to make a coaching change, and that's what happened in both Edmonton and Minnesota. And by the way, the Oilers, I think, are making the playoffs. I'm telling you right now, the bottom end of that Western playoff race is not what it's been the last few years.
Yep.
You got some Arizonas and Nashville's hanging out there in 7th and 8th, and it's very much attainable for the Oilers to get back in. I'm telling you right now, I think they will make the playoffs. As far as the next coach fired, there was so much coaching turnover in the offseason already.
Yeah,
at some point, someone has to put the brakes on here. But I think, obviously, Ottawa Senators fans remain upset in the nation's capital. Darren Dreger mentioned on Insider Trading Tuesday that he thinks the Senators will continue to really try to be patient with that situation with DJ Smith, which I think they should. But at the end of the day, there will be a decision on DJ Smith one way or another over the next few months because his deal's up. So, either Steve Staios believes that DJ Smith is bringing this team where it needs to eventually, or this literally by the fact that there's a contract expiry, that'll be the kind of window. Does it have to happen before then? It potentially could if literally the Senators get into the kind of spiral that they can't get out of.
That makes sense to me. Pierre, we're going to be talking about North America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Let's go.
With your guy, Luke Wilson, the former Seattle Seahawk tight end. We're going to talk to him after the break about your Cowboys and the Seahawks. We've got the Thursday Nighter on this network. We're really excited about it. How confident are you feeling? Because, boy, your team and your quarterback, Pierre, playing very well right now.
They are playing well. They're playing great at home, especially where the game is Thursday night. I will say I think the Seahawks are due for a positive correction in their game. They've been scuffling of late. So I predict the Cowboys win, but not necessarily a Cowboys cover on Thursday night.
I like it. And our friends at FanDuel might like that as well. Pierre LeBrun, you're the best. Great chatting with my friend. And enjoy the game on Thursday night.
Right on, right on. Flipping between hockey and the Cowboys, yeah.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, we can multitask. That's totally simple, right?
That's all I do.